Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time. It is week 2 fantasy football. It is Sunday. I'm so stoked. I'm so excited. I got the whole game show for you today, the whole game day breakdown, my insights on what I feel about the games, my players to start, my players to sit, my players to be worried about. And then later on, I got my start sit, some guys that I want to talk about that I don't think are being looked at enough. Some people that I think that you might be worried about. You know, there are a lot of start-sit questions about them, so I'm going to kind of give you the A-OK that I want them in my lineup or I want them on my bench. So that's today. Got the game day breakdown for you. Of course, it's Sunday morning, September 19th, and we are ready for week 2 action. We're ready to get these dubs. So I'm dropping this on YouTube this morning. I'm dropping this on Spotify this morning for the game, so hopefully you got a couple hours to check it out before game time. But then I'm also going to be jumping over to TikTok at 11 o'clock, and I'm going to make a live video there. I'm going to go through the same exact shows, and then as well be able to do start-sit questions there for you live as well. So awesome show today. Always a good show. Always a good time. Always excited to be doing this. And actually, we got a lot, so let's jump right on in. Let's go over the ins and outs real quick. The people who will affect fantasy outcomes. So this is offense and defense. I know that usually we kind of just go with offensive players, but you know, defensive players, if they're out, it makes a big difference. So let's take a look at those as well. So first off, we got Marshawn Lattimore as a game time decisions, New Orleans, star corner. So if they're without, Marshawn Lattimore, DJ Moore, that's great for Sam Darnold and DJ Moore over there. Marquise Brown is questionable. Still, I checked this morning before jumping on. He is still questionable. So if he doesn't play, I expect him to suit up. But if he doesn't suit up, Sammy Watkins should play a huge part in that game. But also, that's the late game. That's the 8:25 game tonight. So you've really got to be cautious with what you're doing. If you don't have a flex spot from like Detroit or Green Bay on Monday, be very cautious on what you're doing with that position. And if you need to make a pivot, I would probably do it in the earlier windows rather than wait to see with Marquise Brown later on. So get Marquise in your flex. I do want to start Marquise in this game. So it's tough, but at the same time, get him in your flex, and then hopefully, you got a Detroit or a Green Bay player that you can flex out. If you really want to play Marquise and you're kind of sold on it, I'm sure Marquez Valdes-Scantling is on your waiver wires, and he had quite a few targets last week. Now they're playing Detroit. So it might be that's the wide receiver for Green Bay, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So it might be a little bit of a revenge game. They're playing against Detroit. They should be able to put up some points. So we'll see. They're at home. So let me see. Keenan Cole and Jamison Crowder are questionable. So this goes back to the Corey Davis truthers, back and forth. So once Jamison Crowder comes back, I am kind of lowering my expectations on Corey Davis. Keenan Cole was said to have a really great rapport with Zach Wilson going into in training camp and going into the season. So we'll see what happens over there. So take a look out at that if you're a Jets fan or a Jets, any managers out there of Jets players. Tyrod Williams for Detroit is out. We said last week on Monday that you can drop him. So if you want to look around, Quentin Cephas is, probably the next guy up in Detroit. But I'm not going to take a chance on those Detroit wide receivers because it's another one of those games where it could be anybody. So I really don't want to trust that in my lineup. Swift is questionable, but they said they should. Deuce Staley did say he should be good to go. So I wouldn't worry about DeAndre Swift. Definitely fire him up. That is a marquee matchup. An awesome matchup for both running backs. We'll talk about both of them later. Kyle Shanahan, head coach for the 49ers, says that Brandon Ayuk is needing to play. I think we already brought this up, but Brandon Ayuk says that he has to beat out. Kyle Shanahan says Brandon Ayuk has to beat out players in order to get himself back into that starting role. Now, I think this right here, for the people who, are Brandon Ayuk managers in their league, this is coach speak, trying to light a fire under Brandon Ayuk. And as much as you still have to be wary, like, hey, the coach said that, I think that Brandon Ayuk is the best wide receiver on this team. It could be Deebo Samuel, but he's always hurt. So I feel like at any point, this is still coach speak to just kind of light a fire under his ass that he might not have had before. So I don't take too much into this, and I really wouldn't worry about Brandon Ayuk. I wouldn't go and trade him and anything like that. So, calm. Be calm. Be still. Be still. Take a breath and hang on to Brandon Ayuk. Hoyer signs a backup deal with the Patriots. Who cares? Moving on. Let's get right into it because I got a lot to do here. 1 o'clock games. We got 9 of them, I believe. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, I believe. Yep, 9 games usually in the first block. So the first one we're going to talk about is New Orleans at Carolina. Now, obviously, we saw a big, impressive game from New Orleans last week, and they're playing Carolina, which isn't a crazy, good defense, which means fire back up your New Orleans players. I'll play Jameis Winston in this. I'm absolutely playing Alvin Kamara in this. I'm willing to start Juwan Johnson, and interestingly enough, in most platforms, Juwan Johnson is a wide receiver and a tight end. So if you have any trouble at tight end, if you have a lower end guy, I definitely suggest getting Juwan Johnson and throwing him in your tight end spot because that could be immediate, week winning potential if he's playing at wide receiver with Jameis Winston and the team's playing the way that they're playing. So, potential for 2 touchdowns. He plays wide receiver and tight end. Awesome accessory piece. Huge benefit to have that, especially if you're in deeper leagues. Deontay Harris and Adam Troutman, I'll take a look at. Tony Jones got a lot of work last week, but I'm not really high on him. I don't want him in my lineup unless I absolutely have to. On the Carolina side of the ball, they're playing against New Orleans, and if Marshawn Lattimore is out, I still really want to go in on the players in here. So even if Marshawn Lattimore plays, I have medium to low range expectations for Sam Darnold, but I have medium to high range expectations for DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and obviously Christian McCaffrey for the game, regardless of who's playing on the defense or not. So I would fire up DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, CMC, Sam Darnold. I would temper my expectations, but if Marshawn Lattimore is out, I do think that he'll be a good streamer quarterback if you want to get him in there. Terence Marshall, you can take a shot on if you want. There's not a lot of people out there who, offer touchdown ability like that. Maybe Van Jefferson, where he's really touchdown dependent if you're really reaching deep into the, waiver wires. Terence Marshall's actually owned in a lot of leagues, so we'll see. But if he's out there, definitely go take a look if you're really needy at wide receiver. Next game is Bengals at Chicago. Now, I think this is a good game for Cincinnati to really get right and, settle into where they are. So I am willing to play Joe Burrow. I want to play Joe Mixon. I'm willing to play T. Higgins. I'm willing to play Chase. And I'm not so high on Boyd. I'll play him if I have to. But if he's kind of my flex player, I really want to find somebody else that I can get into there. I might play Juju over Boyd. Yeah, that's a hard one. Maybe not. But still, he's in that range where I'm really not confident in him, and I want to find a flex out if I can. Chicago, I just want to bring this up first before we get into, this game and everything and all the quarterback, Andy Dalton, Justin Fields stuff. This is the time of year where quarterbacks are going to roll over no matter what, week 3, week 4, week 5, something like that. So if you're a person who plays daily fantasy like FanDuel, DraftKings, I in the past have won quite a bit of money on grabbing somebody like Justin Fields for, a pretty good price and then loading it up with other people who I know are going to at least have a consistent baseline, and then having the only person who picked Justin Fields in that lobby, I usually ended up winning. But all depends. It's all subjective. Depends on if you, playing against a Patrick Mahomes, blah, 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 obviously, you know what I mean? But those quarterbacks usually tend to be super cheap. You can load up your team with the other players. So take a look at that if you play daily fantasy. If you got money to blow, just throw $1 at it, get a lineup with Justin Fields in it. I think he costs something like $4,500 right now in FanDuel. So if you can load up your team with studs and then have a quarterback that, might offer that. So it could be $1 blown until Justin Fields get in there. But if he does get in there and then he goes off for 2 touchdowns, it's a cheat code. So if you got $1 blow and you like doing daily fantasy, just a suggestion. But moving on, I don't want to play Justin Fields or Andy Dalton in this game. I don't want to play either one of them probably until they figure it out. And I don't want to play Andy Dalton ever, just Justin Fields. David Montgomery's an absolute must start in this game. A-Rob is a must start in this game. Darnell Mooney, I'm willing to start in this game. And Cole Kmet if I have to. if I have to, which means I don't want to, but I'm willing to do it. All right, moving on to Houston and Cleveland. Houston at Cleveland. The only two people on Houston that I really care to look at is Mark Ingram and Brandon Cooks. Aside from that, I really don't want anything else. And even then, those are two people that I'm starting just because they have volume value. You know what I mean? They're going to get the ball. They're going to touch the ball. So if they're getting the ball and touching the ball, it's hard for me to not at least look at the value and consider it. I'm not huge on them. I'm not, especially against Cleveland. I don't know where this ball's going to go. I don't know what's going to happen. So I'm really away from Houston on this one. I will say, though, that Tyrod Taylor did look better than I thought. So as much as I think this is the comeback to reality game for Houston, if you're hurting and you really need to take a chance on a quarterback, you're in a 2-quarterback lead, Tyrod might not be your worst option. He might give you 15 and surprise you with 25. So take a look. I'm on the lower scale of it, but take a look. Where am I? Moving on to Cleveland. So Baker Mayfield, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, all must starts. And I don't think it's close to talk about. They're playing Houston. Cleveland should clean up in this game. And I'm willing to start David Njoku at tight end if he's kind of like down there and you guys aren't sure what to do. I am willing to start David Njoku. If you're hurting at tight end, you need some kind of work there. He was wildly, targeted when they needed big plays, and in the red zone, he was wildly targeted. So I'm definitely on David Njoku. I'm kind of watching him, seeing what happens. But if you want to try to get in there, buy early, I definitely would. Moving on to Rams at Indy. So the Rams played extremely well last week. Indy played super, super terrible. And I mean that on offense a lot more than defense. But at the same time, I think this is going to be a clear game where the Rams just dominate, and you might see a lot of Darrell Henderson by the end of it. So Darrell Henderson's an absolute must start for me. I want to start Stafford, but don't be surprised if later on in the game he's not doing much and they're just handing off the ball and, doing whatever they want. He's not throwing because they don't need to. So don't be surprised if that happens. I want to start Kupp. I want to start Woods. I want to start Higbee. You can take a look with Van Jefferson. Start him with caution because he might be touchdown dependent. You might be relying on just that one play the whole game. So if you want to ride that roller coaster, go ahead. And then on the other side of the ball, Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, Zach Pascal. Those are really the only three people you can look at. Jonathan Taylor is obviously a must start. Nyheim Hines, I want to start because I really feel like these two people are going to get all of the work this game. And Zach Pascal, he could get a touchdown thrown to him. He could get, the targets. It seems like he's, Carson Wentz's favorite target. I'm not high on him at all. I'm not high on any of the wide receivers, not high on any of the tight ends. I really just want Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines. But I'm willing to start both of them because I think they're both going to be heavy involved in this game. Denver at Jacksonville. Denver, Teddy Bridgewater, Cortland Sutton, I think are must-starts in this game. I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to show up today against Jacksonville. And obviously he's playing Jacksonville, but I think Teddy Bridgewater is really going to open some eyes today and have a game like Jameis Winston did last week and really just pop off. So with that, Jerry Jeudy's out. I know Cortland Sutton had a bad game last week, but he is coming back from that injury and everything. So if you have Cortland Sutton, I think this is the week that you can fire him up. If he doesn't perform this week, then I'm very worried. Because if he can't perform against Jacksonville in a game where he should be the number one featured wide receiver, then I'm very worried. So Cortland Sutton for sure in this game. Noah Fant for sure in this game. There was a lot that talked this week. KJ Hamler, Tim Patrick, blah, 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 waiver wire ads, all that. I'm still on the side of KJ Hamler. I think he just has a better rapport with Teddy Bridgewater, and he was more of the explosive play guy, whereas Tim Patrick was kind of just the generic route runner. He'd get the post route, he'd get the, KJ Hamler made plays happen. So I think with just being that player, I want him on my team more because that usually translates to more targets. So you can go ahead and take your shot on Tim Patrick or KJ Hamler. I just lean the KJ Hamler side. Javonte and Melvin, Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, I feel like both are absolute must-starts in this game. Javonte got a lot of work last week. Melvin Gordon had the ripped-off 70-yard touchdown. So this could be an Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram from 2018 situation. So take a look at that. Keep an eye on that. I really want to start both of these guys today. On the Jacksonville side of the ball, they're playing against Denver, and what we saw last week, I'm not too, in on anybody in Jacksonville. I'm very worried about James Robinson, but I'm willing to start him in this game. Hopefully this is the bounce back game where he gets fed 30 carries, because I think Jacksonville needs that as much as Urban Meyer wants Trevor Lawrence to be the passer. You have to establish some sort of run game, and James Robinson last year was getting success when they gave him the ball 25 times. So hopefully that returns. I don't think Carlos Hyde can support 25 carries, and I don't think that the Jacksonville offense can support Trevor Lawrence throwing the ball like that the way he does. So James Robinson, I'm willing to start. Marvin Jones, Laviska, I'm willing to start. James O'Shaughnessy if I'm super, super desperate. But be very careful in this game because any one of these guys could fall off. It could be anybody. It could, at any point in time be all Marvin Jones, all Laviska, all James O'Shaughnessy, all James Robinson. So be wary. You know what I mean? You can start these players because they're good players. Shark, you can start them if you want, but I'm still looking for a different alternative. I'm still looking for a different player. Moving on. Buffalo at Miami. So I think this is another game like Green Bay where Buffalo is going to be very angry coming into this game and they're just going to destroy their division opponent in Miami. So I'm firing up my Josh Allen. I'm firing up my Stephon Diggs. Cole Beasley, same thing. Fire him up. Miami, I don't want to start nobody. And I know that's surprising, but I don't want to start nobody. I think this is going to be an angry Bills team today. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope Tua goes off and we have a lot of fantasy, after this. Probably the only person that I would be willing to flex in is Myles Gaskin. But I don't want to start Waddle. I don't like the target counts over there. I don't like the target share over there. I don't want to start Tua because there's a lot better options out there than Tua in this game. So I'm very scared for everything Miami, and I want really no part in it. New England at the Jets. This is going to be probably a well-contested game, so it's hard for me to predict, especially when it comes to New England being New England and the Jets being, unknown right now. We saw a lot from Corey Davis. We don't know if Jamison Crowder's playing, Keenan Cole's playing, so there's still a lot of unknowns in this game, but if I were to wager against history, if I would take what I know from the past, I would say that this is going to be kind of a 17-point game, like 17 to 20, something like that. So it's hard to decide where the points are going to go. The only person that I really want to start in this game is Damian Harris and Corey Davis. I should have said players. The only players I want to start in this game are Damian Harris and Corey Davis. Now, Damian Harris should get fed the ball a lot in this game, a lot. Jacoby Myers and Nelson Aguilar I'll take a look at if I need to, but still they fall into that, barrel of players of just... I'm trying to look for somebody else to flex out, so it's kind of picking the less of 4 different evils on your bench. But do as you can. Try to, withstand some beatings on the top half, make it up on the bottom half. So moving on, San Francisco at Philadelphia. San Francisco, you have to start Elijah Mitchell. You have to start Deebo Samuel. You have to start George Kittle. Those are easy ones. I'm willing to still take a chance on Brandon Ayuk. I know he goosed you last week. He hurt your feelings. I do think that Kyle Shanahan was kind of, puffing smoke when he said that, Ayuk has to earn his spot back onto the roster and play better than everybody else in front of him. So, obviously, I'm not in the training camp. I don't sit in the meetings and everything, but I think he was because Ayuk still looks, or is still perceived as the number one. There wasn't... 2 people in front of him last week that were standard right there no matter what that were clearly better than him. So, they might have been on the field more, but as far as the eye test goes, they didn't look that great to me. So, I think Brandon Ayuk is still a watch as well. On the Philly side of the ball, this is a game that I really, really like for Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts for sure is a must start. He's my quarterback this year that I'm really all about. I got him in my trophy league. I'm making sure that he's my starter all year, and I'm a big Jalen Hurts fan, and that's to say something because I'm a New England fan. All right, I'm a diehard, lifelong New England fan. You guys broke our heart in Super Bowl 52, but you earned it. That was your Cinderella season. So I love Jalen Hurts, man. I love Jalen Hurts. I love Miles Sanders. I've been saying it for a long time that I think Miles Sanders is the best skill player on that team. As far as wide receivers, running backs, the whole room, I think Miles Sanders is the most talented player in there. So I know there was a lot of talk at the beginning of the week about Kenneth Gainwell. I covered this a little bit earlier where I said I really do think that Miles Sanders takes the starting job this week and, shows everybody I'm the starter. That guy's just the backup. And no offense to Kenneth Gainwell, he's very good, but Miles Sanders is very, very good. So I'm excited to see him potentially break out for fantasy finally and be that guy who could be a top 10 running back every single week. And I really want to see him and Jalen Hurts mesh. If they start meshing, I'm going to trade so much to get Miles Sanders on my team. I really want to see that connection between them two. So hopefully that happens for the Philly fans. Dallas Goedert, I'm also willing to start. Same thing with Jalen Reagor. I'm willing to start both of them. Dallas Goedert, I think if you have him at tight end, he's an absolute must start because of the target shares. I know that Zach Ertz being in there kind of, makes people worried, but I think Dallas Goedert is already a better tight end than Zach Ertz was, and I know that hurts to say, but when you watch the film, when you watch them play, when you watch Zach Ertz catch and fall down, it's just not. It doesn't look the same. And I don't know if it was an off-season thing, but it just doesn't look like Zach Ertz anymore. So I don't know. I'm very in on Dallas Goedert. I love Zach Ertz. I hope it returns, to form. But just from what I saw in week 1, I was like, oh, man, that's not Zach Ertz. That's some guy stole his jersey. Moving on, Las Vegas at Pittsburgh. This is the last game for the 1 o'clock block, and I got to hurry up. I only got 10 minutes left to go through all these, so I'm going to keep rapid-firing these. Las Vegas, I'm really not high on starting anybody unless their name is Darren Waller. Darren Waller is an absolute must-start in everything that he does. Bryan Edwards, Hunter Renfrow, I'll take a look at. Peyton Barber and Drake, I'm out on. I don't want any part of that tandem backfield where it should have been Drake and, Peyton Barber got no work last week, and now all of a sudden they want to have Peyton Barber as the starter instead of Kenyon Drake because that's what they announced this week. I think it was Thursday, is that Peyton Barber is going to be the starter over Kenyon Drake. So I still don't want any part in that offense at all because if you didn't play Peyton Barber at all last week, Josh Jacobs got 2 touchdowns. You worked in Drake a little bit. Now all of a sudden Drake's not good enough and you need Peyton Barber to be the starter. That's a mess. I don't want any part of that. I don't want any part of that on my fantasy team. So I'm out on the Las Vegas, Las Vegas running backs. And that's one of those situations where even if I bench them and they put up 25 points, I don't care. I don't care because I'm not taking the chance that they goose me or give me 1 point and then I'm completely out of luck for the week. So, yeah, I'm out on those guys. Come on, camera. There we go. All right. Derek Carr, I'm all set with as well. They're playing against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a very, very good defense. I want to start Big Ben in this game. I want to start Najee Harris. I want to start Deontay Johnson. Claypool and Juju, you can, flex out. I'm higher on Claypool, so even though I'm throwing Claypool into that barrel of players where you're kind of just like surfing through a catalog of lower-end guys, Claypool's probably my number 1 on that list of lower-end guys. So just keep that in consideration. No tight ends in that game. I don't want any tight ends until we figure out exactly who for sure is number 1. And I think it's going to be Freemuth, or however you pronounce his name. Sorry, I got to get into that. But I'm out until we figure it out. I think there's going to be some tight end. One of those guys there is going to be valued by the end of the year, but we're waiting and seeing. So no tight ends from Pittsburgh yet. Moving on to the 4 o'clock block. Minnesota at Arizona. This, for me personally, is my most anticipated game of the week. I cannot wait to see Minnesota play against the Arizona defense that played last week, and I can't wait to see Arizona play against Minnesota, who's without Everson Griffin and Shaquille Barrett. Yeah, two of the guys that on their defense, big names that are out for that team. So with both those guys being out, it's going to be Anthony Barr and Everson Griffin. Those are the 2 guys they're out with. So that's a linebacker and a defensive lineman, an edge rusher that's out from Minnesota taking on Arizona. So now let's talk about Kyler Murray. Obviously, got to start him. DeAndre Hopkins, oh, so good. Got to start him. Chase Edmonds is probably going to be the sleeper of the week because we saw James Conner get 16 touches last week and he did nothing with them. He looked terrible. So Chase Edmonds, I believe this is the week where against that defense, where they're missing a big linebacker and an edge rusher that they really need, this could be the week that Chase Edmonds pops off, because I think that Kyler could put up 20 on this Minnesota defense before halftime. And if they come out of halftime and they're still rolling, Chase Edmonds is going to get 30 carries in this game. So I have Chase Edmonds. He's on my bench because I want to play DeAndre Swift, but I'm really at the wire of trying to flip them two right now, where I'm like, oh, I think I want to start Edmonds. I really think I want to start Edmonds. So, all right, I'm not going to tilt on the air. I'm not going to tilt right now. Christian Kirk, I also think he's another person you should put in your lineup. Definitely impressive last week, 5 for 5. I think it was 2 touchdowns, matched Nook with the 2 touchdowns. So he's the clear number 2. And when you have somebody like DeAndre Hopkins, it's hard to get 8 targets because, it's DeAndre Hopkins on the other side. But I really like that Christian Kirk, when he gets the ball, he looks like an animal. So I love that about Christian Kirk. I think I've seen a couple leagues where he's out on waiver wires, and I think he was at 80-something% managed in leagues. So you got to go look for him. You got to go see if he's out there. If you're in one of these 20% leagues where, Christian Kirk's just sitting on the waiver wire, go get him. Go get him. Rondale Moore as well. I know a lot of people are high on him. He does look promising. He looks very talented. So I'll throw him into that barrel of wide receivers, but I'm still he's in the mid-tier of that. So if you're a fan of Rondale Moore, that's probably when you should start him. Atlanta at Tampa Bay. This is probably going to be a fun game. I do think that Atlanta's going to show up a lot more than they did last week against Philadelphia. I think they were just a mess last week and they couldn't get anything going. So on the Atlanta side of the ball, I'm willing to start Matt Ryan, but I'm definitely looking for something else. I'm willing to start Mike Davis, looking for somebody else. I haven't given up on Russell Gage, so I'm putting him on this list because I'm like, watch this game, let's see what happens. Cordarrelle Patterson as well got very involved last week, so keep an eye on him. Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts are my only must-starts in this game. The only must-starts that I think that you need to go with in this game, and I think Kyle Pitts still showed enough last week where he'll suffice at tight end. I don't know if we're going to see the Kyle Pitts that you guys wanted to see at the beginning of the year, and I've been saying it since the offseason. I don't know if you automatically transition into that tight end 1 value. I expect Kyle Pitts to be a huge success next year. But I think it's going to be a long way until we see that from Kyle Pitts. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully today he explodes. But I still think it's going to be a tough adjustment period for him, And being the highest tight end ever drafted, it's hard for you to say, this guy's number 1 right away. But I really don't think it's that. So let me speed through here. I only got 3 minutes left. Tampa Bay, Brady, Evans, Godwin, AB, and Gronk. All must starts. Evans, obviously, people were upset about last week, but that's what he does. If you go back and look at his game log from last year, usually the games where he had less than 10 points, he pops off for 15 to 30 points. So, if you got to start Mike Evans. Most teams have to start Mike Evans. I'm in an 8-man league where I have Mike Evans and a lot of other people. He's on my bench. So, if you have a good flop out that you can, a good switch out, good flex out, then go ahead. But besides that, you got to start Mike Evans. Leonard Fournette. He's probably in my back that I want to look at, but even then I'm kind of trying to pivot somewhere else, so I wouldn't really look at him. I would definitely start like a Jamal Williams, Nyheim Hines over Leonard Fournette. Going to Dallas, I think this is going to be another fun game, or going to LA, going to SoFi Stadium. Dallas at LA Chargers. I'm willing to start Dak, Amari, CeeDee, and Zeke in this game. Gallup and Schultz, I'm willing to look at. Schultz seems to be the starter over Blake Jarwin, so that's worth looking at. And then Gallup was actually surprisingly involved, and I think in this game he's going to need to be involved. So I think this should be a high-scoring game. Justin Herbert, you got to start. Austin Eckler, you got to start. Keenan Allen, you got to start. And I think Mike Williams as well is an absolute must start. Jared Cook, you can take a look at, but I'm not high on him at all, and he's really far down my rankings as far as tight ends go. Tennessee at Seattle. Obviously you start Derrick Henry, you start AJ. I'm willing to start Julio in this. I really want to find a pivot off of Tannehill in this because I think this is going to be a Derrick Henry heavy game. So I want to find a pivot for Tannehill if I can. Russell Wilson's a must start in this game. Chris Carson, Tyler Luckett, and DK Metcalf. Those are all must starts in this game. Should be a really high scoring game. Should be a good game. Moving over to Sunday Night Football, this is obviously going to be game of the week that everybody's excited about. Start your Mahomes, start your Hill, start your Kelsey, start your CEH. Lamar Jackson, start him as well. Marquise Brown, keep an eye out for him. and make sure that he's, playing. You got to find that flex because it's a late game, so be careful of that. But if Marquise Brown is playing, I absolutely want him in. Mark Andrews, I absolutely want in. The Ravens backfield, I'm out on. It seems to be a mess. I don't want any part of it at all. I'll take Tyson Williams because I think he's the fastest, and I usually side with the fastest running back, but it's a mess in Baltimore. It's a late game. I want no part in that. So keep an eye out for Marquise Brown. Flex in Sammy Watkins if you can. We'll talk about the Monday night show tonight or tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, as always, from Fantasy Daily. I love you guys.